Good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Donlan. I'm the director here at Port Jeffrey Library. I want to thank you all for coming down tonight, especially with that storm that we had about a half hour ago. We're here to talk about some information about the future of your library. We've had some major moves lately, and I think everybody has questions about what's happening, and we feel that we're at a point where now it's time to share it with you, get some feedback, and figure out what the next couple steps is. At first, I'd like to introduce a couple of people to you. We have our building committee. We have Board President John Grossman. Vice President Christian Newberg. Project Consultant Lee Rosner. And we have BBS Architects here with us. Kevin Walsh. Roger Smith. I'd also like to introduce the rest of our board members to you. Tracy Stapleton. Joel Rosenthal. Lisa Ballou. Susan Pentel-Loper. And Carl Siegel. So, we've been doing a lot of research, a lot of work. You guys have had a lot of questions. We felt that we wanted to make sure we had all of our ducks in a row and we understood where we were before we met with anybody to figure out exactly what was going on. So to that end, we feel that not only is this library at a crossroads for immediately, but this library is at a crossroads for the next 40 years kind of thing. We wanted to really think about where we were and what we wanted to do before we met with you. So we have information for you tonight. We want to tell you where we are, what we have uncovered and discovered, and then we want to figure out what you guys want to see out of your library going forward, not just the next 5 years, but the 10, the 15, the 30, where you think the Port Jeffrey Library should be for your community long after all of us are gone. So, the first bit of information, what has led us here tonight? The first one, and I think a lot of people have major concerns about it, and they're just wondering what we're doing with it. 205 East Main, otherwise known as the Senate Cottage, or the Bales House, or the 1812 House. It seems to have a lot of names. The strategic plan for the 21st century of our new library. The existing library layout and its interior environment. The existing library infrastructure. The existing library site and green space. The Teen Center and Friends, which is leased across the street, and 114 Thompson. So I'm going to hit the very first thing on my list, and the thing that I think a lot of people are here for, the Bales House. So we purchased the house a little over a year ago, and quite frankly, we've heard everything under the sun about the history of the house. We decided it was in our best interest. We wanted to hire somebody to come in and do a lot of research. So we hired Joel Snodgrass from Stewart Preservation Services. From Huntington, Joel has 25 years in the preservation and restoration business. He has a master's degree in restoration and architecture from Columbia University. He's worked on some local projects. He worked on the Presbyterian Steeple over in Setauket, the Montauk Lighthouse. He's done research, he's done preservation, he's done adaptive reuse. We decided he was our guy. He had all the experience, he had a very good eye, he knew what he was doing, he presented himself very well. So we hired Joel to investigate the house for us. And to boil it down, the house is historic. He was able to determine that the small part of the house was built to be 1812 to 1815, couldn't narrow it down any more than that. The other side of the house was about 1850. This house is not on the historic register of places. However, it is part of the historic district. And in fact, if you look, there's a house there, you see our layout right here. This yellow is the historic district. 205 is almost right in the center. It's almost a symbolic. And you have it right there. Joel had decided that 205 is a contributing factor to the historic district, and that it was in good shape, and it lent itself to the history of Port Jeff. And we all know Port Jeff, we love our history. We love to honor it, we love to soak ourselves into it, we believe in it. When we reviewed this all together, we realized that our best plan of action, not only for the library, but for the village, was for restoration and preservation. So that's the mode that we're getting into. We want to restore it, we want to get it up to speed, then we want to adaptively reuse it for services for the library. Are we happy? Yes. So given that, I'm going to segue into Kevin. We have 205 under our belts, and now we're going to start talking about our existing site and existing buildings.
Good evening. Just going to run through, kind of take you through what we've been doing. We've been looking at buildings, sites, spaces, leased, owned, etc., and just try to understand what you have to then think about where you may go. So just starting. Right here. Is this it? Turn. So just starting with, we also kind of gathered, the library's been very helpful in sharing all the resources of all prior drawings ever drawn for the site, for the building, all the different pieces that have come over time. And then we've taken a look and kind of come back and measured and verified. So we have a really good starting point to understand where we are. So just here, just highlighting where the properties, here's your new property line. As you acquired properties adjacent, this is now the shape of the library property. Main building, 205, and then Thompson here. So again, just a starting point. Okay.
Is that upside down?
Yes. It has Thompson on the bottom. So if you go up, you can just go back. Is Thompson here? Yeah, it's just that the drawing is upside down. Just because as we look at the floor plan, this is how the floor plan's oriented. So coming in through the main entrance. So that's why we turned it that way. Just an aerial, just another a little more realistic view. This is how it looks in real time. Okay. And then getting into the actual buildings. Let's just start with the house. Understanding what is the building. What are the floor plans? How big is it? What's in it? To understand what it might become at some point if we want to reuse it for other purposes. So we've actually drawn each of the floors, starting with basement, first, second, and up to the third. And in its past life forms, obviously this has been retail, this has been rentals, there are different things going on each floor. But basically, at the end of the day, it's about a 1,200 square foot footprint on the ground of building. And when you add all the 4 levels together, it's almost 3,000 square feet of space. So it's a fairly significant amount of potential space. And obviously the first floor is probably the most, easiest to use. It's right there. And it's the largest of the floors. Okay. Getting into the main building. Now this is just a diagram. We'll get into the actual floor plans in a minute. Just to understand the history of how this building has come together as the sum of many different endeavors over time. So starting in F here, that's really the original building, okay? 1924. So, and as time went on, you kind of moved up the hill, right? So in the 60s, there was some addition of the main space and kind of the split level of stacks, which was typical of that time. And then again, most recently, the addition to the far eastern edge, with children's room on top, and then ways to kind of access all the different points along Thompson. So the building kind of grew going up the hill, and then had to create some circulation along Thompson in order to access all the different points and provide an elevator, et cetera, et cetera. So really, you have a lot of layers of history just in the way the building was arrived at. There are things that we're just looking at. So as we understand what the library is and what its potential is, we have to understand how it's put together and how the parts work, or don't work, or could work better. Okay. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. One thing we could just go back one more. Very important. G over on the top right. That's leased space. That's across the street. That's the Friends and the Teen Center. So it is a very important point that you're not all within the main building. You have programs across the street. That's just something to think about.
It's very, very modular. Things are really separated. We have a hard time adapting each space to its own use, or use as we go along this different day. I think this kind of highlights that space.
Okay, I'm now going just to the lower floor, which we are all right here, right in the middle of the building. here. And as a sense of from East Main going up the hill goes up, the building goes down, and then a bit of the building pops up on top on the eastern edge. But this is all what you know, but this is a good way to visualize not only the floor plan and all the components from stacks, how it's used and how it's situated. And as we move forward into analyzing what the building is, how it interacts with the site, and ground and grade and light, daylight, et cetera, it's all important to have a look at it. So again, we've gone through and redrawn and understood all the different components. The main floor, again, I'll just mention, and it's just something that you live with as you're going up the hill. There are actually 6 different levels within the library. So it's a lower floor and a main floor, but there are component parts that are kind of floating. So there's a couple steps here, a couple steps there. And that's just because you're situated on a hill. So it's just part of it, though. So as we talked about the different pieces in that previous diagram, sometimes you have a sense that you might want to expand more, but you don't feel like you necessarily can at the moment the way it is. It's kind of a lined up series of additions over time. So to my main library, again, starting with the original library along East Main, the main body of the building from the 60s, the split level area, which has the children's on the upper half now, that happened over time, and along Thompson, the quiet porch, the elevator, and a series of stairwells and hallways that were aided over time, just to make sure you could access all the different pieces. Okay. Roof, and just another look from the other side, looking from the Bales House side, and then also just the team and friend space over here. Sense of you have a roofscape going on. You can see all the different there. That was a building once upon a time. That was a building. This was the latest addition in the back, along Thompson here, and the main entry here. Okay, now that's kind of the end of drawing what is, and it's the beginning of starting to analyze how the different pieces may or may not interact. So here's a sense. These are all drawn at the same scale, meaning you measure this, they're all the same size in your plan. So the first floor of the house is that big, right? And just to point out, Tom's office here, right, is about as big as the room in the back on the one side. So you get a sense of what are the pieces. Here's the computer room. It's that big. It's about the same size as kind of the main space in the house. So you get a sense of how do the sizes relate back and forth, and then you have teen center here, friends, etc. along the sea. So you get an idea of relative sizes. So we're starting to assess what you have and how it relates. Okay, just some charts. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these, but this just to take that information and understand it a different way. So in mellow is everything on the main level. So just that's what's there. I'll get to the next slide. Talks, which I won't get to yet, but talks about how the different program areas can be split between the main level and the lower level. Okay, but this again, just how much is on the main level and what is it? How much is in the lower level and what is it? What's leased space? And overall, how much space do you have? The main library is about 23,000 and so square feet. The house is about 3,000, and you have about 2,500 square feet lease. So you get an idea of the different pieces. Okay.
Is the 2,500 the good times?
Yes.
That's 2,500?
Between the two.
Between the friends.
The whole thing. And then this is just a chart that says, okay, now by area, we just basically listed what was on the main floor and what was on the lower floor. But as you look at program, you see that yellow and blue are not on the same floor. So there's some splits that go. This is just for us to understand as the library continues to think about how it wants to function. Does it want to gather certain areas that are now currently split on different floors and try to put them together somehow? Is there another way to combine it, another way to look at it? That's all that's about. Okay, so again, that's just a snapshot and a look and the beginnings of trying to understand the relative sizes and what you own and what you lease
Okay, so I'm going to take over about now. This is our building program and goals. As you all know, we did a strategic study a couple of years ago, and they've identified some areas, and we put our heads together and thought about it. And these are what we think need looking at. These are what we think need good, strong eye. So relocation of the teen center and the Friends from the lease space across the street into the main library, improved meeting space, increased role of technology, improved public seating and casual gathering, revisioning of the stacks and the digital media, opening up of the existing main library space, updating of the main library, including infrastructure, maximize use of green space, and improve presence of the library in the community. That list, and we have a board right there if you want to see, we felt that those were the most important parts. As we looked at the strategic plan, as we did those surveys a couple of years ago, these are the things that came up. Everybody that said what worked and what didn't work in the library. And these are things that we think that we should focus on. And this is one of the things we want to talk to you about when we get to the Q&A. What do you see as improvements for your library? Where do you see where we can do something to improve? We just don't want to make change. We're looking to improve not only our community, but the physical aspects of the library as well. So those are the most important ones we came up with. So now we have the site survey, and I'm going to hand it back to Kevin.
Okay, just all the diagrams before, we've been measuring the existing building, but as important as the site itself. So the library had a professional survey prepared of the combined properties so that we could really understand exactly where the buildings are located, exactly where the slopes are, where the utilities are, and things like that, so that we could have a better starting point to understand how the different buildings may interact with one another. So just to say we now have this survey in the last and that leads us to the next piece, which is a type of idea of what may happen next. Let's look at that site. We've done the building. We know what the building is. We know what the house is. What are the different opportunities that may be a resultant of this analysis and the feedback that we get? So basically, the main library itself, within the building, some renovations, interior renovations that stay within the building footprint itself. Those are all possibilities. There's land moving to the east. There are opportunities in parking and the property adjacent. We kind of left in kind of yellow with green along East Main. That part of the historic district too is kind of the volumetric presence of the buildings to the street and the streetscape. So we really kind of want to leave that alone. So we're kind of letting that just kind of reside there. And that we would think about what to do with the house, what to do, if anything, between the house and the library, and what might happen behind the house. So really that's all that this is saying, is that those are the opportunities, if anything, should be done.
So our next steps after this, we wanted to give you this information, and we'll do the Q&A so we can really dial down to any of your questions. We want to take that information, we're going to call it, we're going to think about it, we're going to shoot it over to Roger and Kevin, and then they're going to start really thinking about our needs, what do you see at the library, and then they're going to put on their architect's hats and they're going to come up with something. We're hoping to have something to present to you before Thanksgiving. That'll be the next step. We'll have a public meeting then to actually show you something. We're really energized about this. We know that people have been waiting, and we purposely took our time because we wanted to make sure that we got all of our I's and crossed all of our T's, and that we felt that we've done that. That's what we're having tonight's meeting, and then we feel once we do that, we give you that information. If you guys have any questions, now we can hit the ground running and really have something tangible to present to you, hopefully before the holidays. Those will be the next steps. So I think at this point, we can open up the Q&A. Sure.
And I'm curious, when you were talking about the plans, you didn't mention the building beyond the parking lot. Is that your building?
Yeah, the one point, what we could do, even if we wanted to, it is a sensitive that we've been very recipients.
Is this too far out? The idea of somehow adjoining the library for the 12,000
No, it's not.
It's not what?
No, everything's on the table,
Yeah.
everything's feasible. The reason we did this sketch is really because we really wanted to hear what you wanted to do. And we know that, and I love this, and I appreciate every time Kevin was saying something, Tom's shaking his head. Yeah. So this is really great, because what it does, it starts to tell you where we think things could go. But I don't know what those things are. So yeah, there is a way to connect the main building to the Bales house. But we've got to do that really sensitively and very nicely, and obviously keep the streetscape the same, so it might kind of sneak in.
Can I'll add a little bit of information to that. When we got the survey done, library had the survey done, we learned a couple things. First is from East Main Street up the hill to these buildings is 7 or 8 feet. That's one. And the first floor of the house is about 15 inches higher than the main floor of the library. So they're just things to think about as we think about possibly
I'm going to change that right now. I have a few things I'd like to kind of put onto that list in no particular order. I'm not sure, does this basement, how many exits does this basement have? So that might be something we want to consider in terms of exiting the building.
Yeah.
So something that would probably be on the list. Also, the elevator, I noticed, if you need to use the elevator, if you experience a disability or have, some kind of mobility concern, it's kind of tucked out of the way, and so people that might want to use that, it's, in terms of disability theory, it's not the best location for maximum use. So when you're thinking about the 6 levels that are in this library, reducing them so it's more accessible to a person who uses a chair, I think would be a really good consideration. And then also respecting the neighbors who live behind the Bales house. Is there a way to also, again, maintain the integrity of the house, enforcing it, reinforcing it, maintaining the structure, the view from the street, but then also possibly expanding out behind that house. So we have an additional 3,000, in addition to the 3,000 square feet.
Yeah, it goes back to what Roger was saying. We have, these are all opportunities that we have behind. It is an opportunity, but like you said, very important. We know the sensitivity, and we're very, very keen on observing all that. And you're right about the elevator. It's stuck on the corners. It is designed into a fine setting. And it's one of the few ways you can get up to children's, and it's the one room that you always guaranteed to have strollers or somebody in wheels. So, that's what we've been talking about all this time, is those minutiae details about what's your experience when you come here and how can we improve that.
Yeah, user friendly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Judy.
One of the things I've noticed is that I rarely come down here unless there's a special event happening down here, and I'd love to see better exhibition space that's more accessible to the public. I don't know if this has anything to do with the architecture, but I'd love to have more comfortable chairs in the middle.
That might be fixable before we put shovels in the ground.
And finally, I would like to see a better periodicals collection.
This is a good question. Do we have a fire extinguishing system in the whole library?
We have fire extinguishers. We don't sprinklers, yes, we have sprinklers, yeah. Yes, yeah, we have to by law. We inspect it every year.
Can the building structurally go up? Is that possible, or? Oh, sorry.
Ken, the question was, is the building able to be added onto?
Could you go up?
Okay, go up. We put a couple of dots on the building, because that's a question we've been asking ourselves, and we've been asked by the board too. The building is not presently designed to do that. That's not the end of the world, but it's the beginning of a mess. Sometimes when you go to do it, we've looked at different, that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It's one that we are investigating. It's one of our blue dots. We're taking a look at whether or not we do take something and raise it again, which would then create further accessibility issues that we have to solve, and other structural issues to the existing building. It's a thought. Every one of them is on the table. what we're gonna wind up doing, and I'm just gonna go backwards for 10 seconds, because you gave me the mic. Okay, what time do you guys wanna go home? What was wonderful, what we're doing is, there was an empirical thing happening. I was trying to find the right word. What Kevin has been doing is the empirical piece of this, really putting together all of the information. And I was watching you through it, because I'm watching it, I know that that's our process. We're not doctors, but that's like our CAT scans and our x-rays and our MRIs. It's our way of knowing how you operate every single inch. But we don't know what your thoughts were, that's why we're here. And I think the other basis of that was once we knew, because when we were hired to take a look at that program relative to the building and the property. Once the house becomes situated and fixed, it starts to dictate how everything else is gonna take place. I don't think it's terribly problematic. I have to tell you, we see three-dimensionally, well, sometimes. Right now I am. When I go home tonight, I won't see a thing. I'm sure I did. But one of the things that lets us do is we start to see how things go together. And we can see, if someone's saying, is there space behind the house? Yeah, there is. And it's a nice space. And is it doable? Yeah. Is the house renovatable? Absolutely. Can we make it look like it does? Or like it should? What did it look like in 1812? And that's some of the history that will be uncovered, because I think there's a responsibility to do your best to make it look like that, as best as possible. It's not the same responsibility to perhaps go inside and try to reproduce 1812, but obviously still try your best all the way through. So we're looking at it all the way through. I know that's a long explanation, but it's taking empirical information and then trying to spin that in your head to see what you see, and getting all of the feedback that we have from you, and still trying to meet that list as best we can.
I think one thing that should be pointed out is that most of us in the village adore this library. We love it, we use it all the time, and I think 99.5% of what you do is terrific. I happen to love the elevators, I don't think there's any, you know, that's a matter of taste. But I'm just saying that I think you should know that there's a tremendous positive response, and I think we're thrilled with what you're trying to do. And we will.
I don't want to throw out numbers, but we see it with, we compare to the big boys in terms of use of the library, checkouts. We're right up there with Smithtown, along with the districts that are huge, and we work with a much smaller population. And I see it at the budget vote, I see it when you come in. And I would like to know what the 0.5% is, because I'll get on that tomorrow. It's not 100, it's not.
It's just people that fetch about everything.
So this room is too small,
Yes.
dark, windowless.
It's a basement.
It's a
There's
basement.
no way around it. Everything down here is a basement. And my heart breaks when people have offices down here. They don't know if a tornado hit, they don't know if training, they don't know if tornado, seriously. Yeah. So, and as a meeting space, you know, I can talk for hours about it, but it could use improvement.
It's number 2 on the list, it's a high priority.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, I'm very glad you have the building. Thank you for buying it. I would like to think that you would let us know how long the lease is on the building of course.
Oh, sure.
Doesn't that,
Yeah.
that pertains to an awful lot of what you're trying to do.
Yep. We're on very good terms with the owners over there. We just added 2 more years onto it, so we have another 2 years, and then we've been in serious talks with them, and they're very receptive. Who wouldn't be? You know, they guaranteed the money. We're good for it. We're a local institution.
Well, they know where to find you.
And they know where to find me. That's right. So, you know, we've been in constant contact with them about what, you know, we are going to do with the teen center, or what, you know, and when we're going to the exit strategy. We don't have a date yet, so we went with another 2 years. It was expiring next month. So we did another 2 years because we figured we're even at our fastest pace. Everything lines up. You know, every permit falls into place. We get every variance in the world, so we can do whatever we want. It's still going to be years before completion. That's, you know, as a public institution, that's our project's going.
Could I just add on an idea? I know this was discussed when the previous director was here and before they ever bought our building. From the back space where you have the big bubble behind the old building that was bought, that can attach very well coming through the back. If you go, and I'm not trying to take over the meeting, Remember, this was done by, I think it was, Mr. Boykin and some of the people from the board, I think you were one of the people, right, Stacy?
Tracy.
Basically, it was that the way it is at the back, it drops off at the back of this building, and it can attach over here where the offices are on the lower level.
Yeah.
So maybe that is a possibility of expanding the basement spaces so that you can make use of.
Right,
I don't know.
yeah, and so now figure out part of that list, you know, it's an option, you know.
Do you have a budget, and how do you fund this?
We don't have a budget because we don't know where it's gonna be yet. Funding, there's a ton of different options that we could do as a public institution. All I can say is I don't know what the number's gonna be. I have no idea. As a village resident myself, I'm sensitive to not putting a burden and doing the best project we possibly can. We have options. There's always grants, there's always fundraising, that kind of thing. How much comes into play, I don't know. I won't know until I have a number. That most likely will have some sort of number probably in the next meeting. Because we don't know, I don't have design yet, so I can't tell you, is it going to cost $10, is it going to cost $1,000, is it going to cost $10 million, you know, I don't know. You know, I've seen library budgets for projects that are like in the 20 to 30 million, but those are big, huge buildings. You know, and it's another library projects less than $1 million. Yeah, so it depends on how much we can get done off that list with the least amount of invasiveness as possible, while still getting the areas that will better serve you as library spaces and event areas.
Being responsible.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Thank you. I really welcome the opportunity to ask to be helpful in planning the future. It's very nice to be able to do that. But in doing that, look at the digital age as it's moving forward. It's replacing the primary reason for the library traditionally because it's separating printed matter from binders. And as a result, the nature of the library is likely to change considerably, and it already has in many respects. The teens that are over at the teen center today are the ones that we're planning for now.
Right, yeah.
And the one thing that we miss, and it's been spoken to already in this community, is an opportunity for people to get together and have an appropriate place for film, discussions, poetry, music. And I think we have a wonderful opportunity to do that here, not in this room, because I can't even, where I'm sitting, I can't see that completely. So what I would suggest is that when you go back out of the library's current parking lot, go further back and down that house, you have two parking lots that's under that structure. And in that new structure, you have some kind of meeting room where everyone in the room can be seen and can see what's happening on stage.
Yeah. Something that
And
doesn't have these poles.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really important because we don't have that in this community.
Right.
There's nowhere that we have it. And I think that's where the future is. Libraries are going to be as much use of meetings, discussions, and sharing ideas as it is to check out.
And it's interesting, that's what we talk about during the meetings. But just a point, believe it or not, the circulation for able books has gone up since digital books.
They're
So
going to disappear eventually.
people like the books. You know, the numbers keep on going up, believe it or not. Like Harry Potter revitalized reading for that age group. E-books and downloadables have revitalized the actual physical book. The numbers are, 10 years ago, we were probably double what we're doing in
You just elaborating on Stephen Maximize use of green space. Yeah, it occurs to me if you use the green space and you're talking about building, yes, that might be set.
There might be people going against each other. Well, one of the things that we talk about, we like the front, and we have an opportunity to make a nice, really landscape front. The other thing we're thinking about, and again, these are our wish lists, and not so much in relation to each other, but we noticed when we did the teen and children's garden, and when we look around, I think that there's not much way in the village of green spaces for leisure, and there's not much in the way of, say, learning how to garden, that kind of thing. So we want to tap into that. If that means that perhaps whatever addition or whatever we do happens to go have 10 foot shorter so we can put in a community garden or something like that, or a walkable wall, an honor wall, something like that. That's what the green spaces we're looking for. I think the outdoor spaces, especially in the nice weather, will be important. You know, and that's, we want to highlight that. You know, Joe and I had many discussions. We both feel very strongly that green spaces should be an option from the library to the public. Yeah, yeah. And we want to hear what you want from us.
Don't forget, you can put green space on the roof.
One of the things that someone mentioned before, that the meeting room could be behind Vale's house. One of the, and then someone said you can't even see out. It would be really wonderful if the meeting room got out, lived, breathed, and then it could see out if it wanted to, or close itself up if it wants to. And then what that would do is allow some of the other spaces, if it were somewhere, and there aren't too many spaces out there, that's pretty obvious. You mentioned one, and you've mentioned one, and there aren't 12 dots up there. So this isn't really like, you know, the solution is going to be more in the detail. So that gets the discussion of what you're leaving as not built as green. So we've done spaces where the meeting room just bleeds outside at some point. Wouldn't it be lovely that on a night like tonight that you could step outside, have a cup of coffee or whatever else, because you can't serve that, and then come back in and be able to go through. We're looking at all of that, but obviously we don't have an expansive property to do it, so it's a blend, trying to get all of those to work. And in a 12 by 12 or a 12 by 20, I can get some really great space outside that I don't have now. Kev's explanation of 7 and 8 feet high is going to stay. We have no intention of all of a sudden terracing the front lawn to make that something different than what it is. So you're seeing what we're seeing.
Has any consideration been given to the viability of utilizing solar panels?
We've actually applied for some grants for solar panels. It's something that we're actively looking into. One of the things that we want to do when we do this is to make the building as efficient and has the least amount of energy footprint as possible. We feel that's the way to go. It not only does that make us green, it reduces our overhead. Any money that reduces our overhead goes back to use programs.
So how far along have we come in terms of determining the feasibility, considering the location and other trees and so forth?
Not to get into details, but we have a great roof. So we had a couple of companies come in and do studies, and they loved our roof. It's just a matter of getting funding for it, because it can be very expensive to get solar in. And given that we're starting this right now, it's one thing that's in the mix, not just solar, LED lights, and that kind of thing, and buildings. So we want to be able to incorporate that once we know what the footprint is, that kind of thing. So that it's almost like everything's on hold until we kind of know what we can and can't do, what you guys want to see us do.
I would just hope that you are sensitive to any rebate dates that may expire. Not waiting on us, because if you have to make a decision, then you have to let us know when you need a decision by.
Right. Yeah. I think our timeline is going to be, we'll get feedback 3 to 4 weeks, and then hand everything over to Roger and Kevin, and they're going to get something up, and we're hoping before Thanksgiving to have a second meeting where we'll have something tangible to show you.
How you doing? It's really just a small comment. First, I want to thank you very, very much, the building committee and the board for taking a proactive approach to the 1812 house. Obviously, it's very important to the community and to the historical society as well. So we support adaptive reuse, absolutely, for that building. With that in mind, certainly, that provides a great opportunity to link the past with the future and the present through any type of programs. The building itself will be a museum just by entering it. So anyway, the Historical Society can help you in the future with that. We're there for you. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks, man.
One question. Will lighting design be part of the general
Yes.
plan? If you look around at these lights, you see the improvement would be very good.
Yes. Yeah. I think that goes back to infrastructure. We have some things in infrastructure. And instead of tackling the problems one at a time, we decided to stop. We're going to do a full master overall plan and try to address all these problems at once. Our infrastructure, I can go on for hours about the infrastructure, going not just the lights. It's an old building, and unfortunately that's old boilers and old HVAC systems and old everything, so.
The lighting will be an integral part of the
Yeah,
planning.
yeah, definitely, yeah, as well as orange displays, I know we had to talk about the other day. Orange.
Mr. Bell, just one more question. The space behind the Bales house, if we got, okay, as long as you respect the people that live on Vineyard, that was always my main concern.
Yeah.
I didn't want to encroach any further than that already had. We
Right.
were there before some of the other places
Yeah.
where obviously the building is old, but the point is, you need to respect the residents, because they're wonderful neighbors. I miss them, I really do. Well, Mr. Di Maria is here, and he's fantastic. Oh, he's there, that's right, he's snuck over there. And I think that it's very important that the residents be respected, whether there's an idea from the residents or the people that live there, because we're a very tight community.
Right,
The
yep,
space is
yeah.
limited.
It's basically why we're having this, we really strongly community, and we believe in,
But what the architect, you're the architect, right?
Yes.
Okay, what he said and what Ani said about gardens on the roof, if you were to use that space with the big blue dot behind the Bales house, maybe that could be your, what would you call it, atrium? Could have a beautiful 2 or 3-story with possible solar and glass.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
mean,
natural
so much
lighting.
beauty.
There's a,
Get
there's
to
a.
work.
So, wicked money. But it was so important we got to meet you because we needed to hear some of that feedback. That's what we wanted.
It was a wonderful building. We enjoyed
That's a
being
great,
in it.
it's a great spot. It's more, I think it's got a lot of potential.
I wanted to just put that one thing, this entire process is was a public process. There will be obviously a second meeting where the architects are going to present some preliminary designs, and there are going to be many opportunities for the public to voice its opinion about whatever decide to move forward with. That includes, planning board sessions, which you've been to a few, so be many opportunities for
I think the main thing though, if you can bring in young people that use the building that was Michael and Mary's bookstore, somehow get their minds open to the idea and bring them in, because I'm sure they have so much creative energy and so many wonderful ideas, and like Michael said, bring things into the future rather than 1812 is nice, but I'm glad they didn't move then. I can appreciate big, beautiful buildings, but I think bring in the younger people and let them help you figure out, not just us.
Just by way of a thought exercise, not by way of recommendation or anything, but if you're going to bring that teen center across the street, you're going to need significant extra additional space, and the space has to flow. You can't just put a rectangle in a spot.
right.
And the 1812, 1850 historic area would seem to me, and I'm a novice, this is not a recommendation, to be a nice place for a very traditional kind of reading room, such as you have in the front of the original building. And but not down a hallway kind of thing. It has to kind of flow in.
Yeah, yeah. And everything that we want to do is going to be an improvement. So we know what works with the teens and the friends now, so whatever we do and what works for them, we're going to increase. So yeah, I think you're right. This can't just be a hallway or something tucked in the corner. They have their space, and they like having this type of space. We need to figure out some way of honoring the success of the teen center.
Well, what is the advantage of integrating the teen center into the main library?
There's a lot of overhead about having it across the street. And staffing issues. We have extra FIPA bills, SG bills, national grid bills, extra insurance. I have to keep an extra person on staff every day. So the teams don't get out till 2:30, and we have to have somebody doing like that.
Are you talking about giving up that area altogether?
One of the goals is to bring them back into the fold. It's not gonna happen tomorrow, it's not gonna happen in 6
But
months.
to give up that space as
Yeah.
library
Yeah,
space.
because we're leasing that space.
How expensive is that?
I think off the top of my head, it's around $4,000 a month. Yeah, that's just rent, and utilities and staffing, the extra insurance, you're looking probably 75 a month, 2,500 over a year, and now we've been there since 2008. It starts to add up. And that's money that we could give back to, active programs, that kind of thing, if we bring them into the fold. It makes, even security issues, it makes it easier to make sure that they're safe if they're back in the main building. Somebody behind Mark had a question? Did you have a question?
Just had a question about the study porch. Doesn't it have a lot of peak usage, like over weekends, students?
The side one, usually, we do a count on each room every hour, and we discovered that the study porch usually peaks at midterms and finals. And then, yeah, sometimes on the weekends, yeah, other times it's dead, yeah. So, we had a fundraiser letter go out. We know we need to expand, like Mr. Christian said, our technology offerings. Well, that's one of the reasons we thought to do. However, whatever we do with that room, there will be additional study, quiet study space done. That's one of the core services of the library, is to have a place where you can study, so, yeah. All these things are on the table.
Yeah, and actually, because I've used this stuff
Yeah.
quite a lot, and the only issue that I see in that area, and I'm not saying it should stay there, necessarily, but I know the elevator being there is actually a problem.
Yeah.
Because nothing against little kids, but they come in and they make a lot of noise.
The volume control on little kids is a little awesome. Yeah, it's distracting, the fact that the elevator's there. And then, I'm not the quietest person in the room, so that room travels, the sound from myself, or if the kids are going upstairs, travels into that room. And then if you close the doors, then it starts heating up, and so there are problematic issues with it. On the other side, it's got great views of the street, so. Yeah. But quiet study space is one of the core services of any library, us in particular. Not only because we're right next to the starting point, but we have a very educated community who likes to research and read, and we want to make sure that they have a place to do it. So we'll continue it, and give us your feedback, and thank you very much for coming down. Admission cards and all these seats. You can hand them in now, give it to me or us anytime during the next couple of weeks. There's also on the webpage a form to fill out, and you can send it that way.